Negative modifiers intended for mature audiences, and as always, listener discretion is advised. But since you're still here... Hello and welcome to maybe the strangest post-game show we've done so far, because it's not one, not two, but 4.5 games we'll be talking about. As always, I'm Charlie, joined by the rest of the cast.
Woody woo.
That was Alex.
Yep. Oh, yeah. I'm Alex.
I feel like I should just make a sound to introduce myself.
God damn it.
I kind of set the tone, so it feels like we have to at this point.
Meow. Huh.
We'll get to you later, kitten.
The meow works considering one of your characters.
No, stop it. I can't.
I saw an opportunity for the bit. Hey, what's up? If you don't remember who I am, my name is Jad. Unfortunately, I am apparently the resident negative modifier kitten now. I do not have any socials that you can find me on.
Every podcast gets the resident cat girl, apparently. Don't know.
I am being shoehorned and railroaded into an archetype.
Do we have it in the budget for the headset with the kitten ears?
I may or not have a pair of those lying around somewhere from the original Kickstarter of it.
I know you do.
This is off to a great start. Yeah, we're going to talk about the 5 games we played in Halloween. I guess 4 for the entire cast, 5 if you include Horse Girl as part of that conversation. If you're not a Patreon subscriber, the chaos you are witnessing right now is kind of typical of most of the session zeros for all of the Halloween stuff. So if you're enjoying this, maybe go check out the Patreon. It's been wild the last couple of games. But I digress. Should we just go in order?
Sure.
Yeah, so that means drivers up first. Actually, before we start this off, this was born of, we've had some kind of production snags on our end, just with people being sick and availability and stuff like that to record some stuff. And I had the bright idea of hey, let's do some stuff for Halloween. And then we got halfway through October and I'm like, oh God, what have I done to myself? So I don't know if this will be back next year in this form, but it was kind of fun to do. Perhaps we'll plan it out better. But yeah, Kult Driver, the Kult for Cult Divinity Lost, or Kult the Driver, whatever you want to call it, was born of, I think Dylan was out sick that night, and we wanted to play something. And I'm like, hey, let's do some Kult. We got the driver. The driver is intended as a GM and 1-player thing, but it's pretty easy to adapt for GM and 2 players. And having Jad and Alex be on the lam from their failed bank job and Dylan's tragic murder or death inside that bank vault was fun enough to play through. It feels like it's been so long since we played that. It hasn't been.
You know what it is? It's because we dedicate ourselves to a game, and usually those games take several sessions over a course of weeks.
Yeah. And
the fact that we did so many one-shots consecutively definitely feels like it was just so long ago.
Yeah, it's true. That's actually probably exactly what it is. Yeah. So the driver is interesting, where the entirety of its packet basically for it, I think it's only 6 or 7 pages. Most of that was improv, and that was kind of showcasing Powered by the Apocalypse some, where a lot of it was me just reacting to what Jad and Alex came up with as we were playing through it, kind of thing. I had a couple triggers to kind of play off of. I think it was it recommends here's some things to pick from, but everything after that, it's kind of just roll with it and see what happens. And someone should probably die at the end of this. But yeah. Do we have any questions, I guess, about the driver now that we're way far away from it and stuff like that?
So, given that the driver was deaf, I'm assuming, well, spoiler alert. Well, if you're listening to this, you should know we're talking about the episode. So it's kind of on you at this point.
Oh, I should have said that. Yeah. Full spoilers for all 5 things we played during Halloween. So,
yep.
Yeah.
So I'm correct. I mean, if I'm remembering properly, the driver's deaf.
No.
Okay.
The driver is a, when I get bored of the various games we're playing, I start writing kind of stuff for Kult, because it's something we haven't spent a lot of time kind of doing original stuff for. And by its very nature, given the kind of Matrix-esque aspect of Kult, there's a whole faction in that game called the Outcasts. Okay. That is essentially people that either have they're aware they're in the simulation essentially, and they're kind of he is me messing around with a character that's not like on the same god tier as other stuff, but like he's aware of what's going on. Like he has fun with it, where he's like, yeah, no, like I probably was a player character at one point type of thing, and I've kind of hit that point where I'm now like, I've not fully ascended, but I got some serious juice, and I kind of used to fuck with people a little bit because it amuses me. He is something I've been kind of toying with for a while, and like he was just supposed to show up and be weird and creepy and then like fall out of the story. The fact he became a whole thing was purely you guys were kind of engaging with him, so I'm like, yeah, fuck it, guess we're introducing the taxi cab driver.
I thought that was a plot element that was there the entire time.
No, it's not even in the driver books. That was just a character I've had like sitting on the back shelf where I'm like, I think this guy is neat. Like, it's given the way Kult is written, you can kind of have a weird GM insert character of like guy who's there who's like, I'm a little bit aware I'm in a tabletop RPG. I don't realize it's a tabletop RPG, but I get there's a game going on at least, and I'm above the board enough I can mess with it some. So you can kind of have a little fun little GM character that's like, I'm just gonna do my own thing. I'm not gonna play by the rules of the setting. I've been having fun kind of fleshing him out in my free time, and he was just supposed to show up and kind of be like, hey, I'm gonna show up in like Kult stuff moving forward to link Kult stuff we do together vaguely kind of thing, because of how that game works. It's kind of hard to link a continuous world together, but you can have recurring characters kind of thing. So yeah, he was just supposed to show up in the diner and be like, yeah, I'm here, being weird, saying, hey, it's more fun if you run.
I think Kult, I love Kult. I love how very character driven and just kind of collaborative storytelling it is. I always love collaborative storytelling. I just think that like having players kind of contribute directly into a narrative and just kind of heavily influence the way that things go. Not saying that like other TTRPGs don't do that.
No, it's the point of Powered by the Apocalypse. Like, it's the whole idea that like it lets me be very reactive to what you guys come up with and vice versa.
Mm-hmm. I think like that game was very intriguing just because it was like, okay, cool. We have this concept and open sandboxes. I always struggle with open sandboxes because like I have choice paralysis. So like, what the fuck do you do? So the little tidbits and pieces that you were able to kind of give us to just kind of get us rolling was very interesting. Completely forgetting that this is all just hyper reactive as well, just because like being surrounded by an entire biker gang, that was stressful. And trying to figure out those choices for sure. And the cab driver, that guy was fucking stressful as hell too.
He's supposed to be, yeah. I'm glad he came off as stressful, where it's like, I know what's going on, you don't.
Yeah, the cab driver was a great character. Didn't say much, right to the point. Just solid, really fucking hit. Loved it.
He was technically killable. You guys just didn't have enough bullets to do that. He is still technically immortal, just quite hardy.
That was going to be my next question, was could we actually kill him? But that makes sense.
Yeah, it's one of those things where kind of like his whole thing is he can move, if that makes any sense. Like, maybe this is supposed for stuff down the line, but like, given the nature of how the world of Kult works, his whole thing is he's just really good at moving through it. Like, he knows where all the back doors are and stuff like that. So if you tried to fight him like hand to hand and like had been trying to do that, you may have found a situation where he was like punching you through the air by like putting his hand through a hole in reality and punching you from behind or something like that.
Were we about to fight Neo, essentially, it feels like?
Less Neo, more like, God, what's that Into the Spider-Verse film that's covered in holes, so you can like throw stuff in and shoot it out back at you through other holes?
Oh, the main villain, the dot guy or whatever?
Yeah. Kind of like with that, except the holes aren't in him. You can just see the holes in reality and be like, oh yeah, I can put my hand in there, or like I can drive my car here and that will get me from here to there extra fast, because obviously that's how you get there type of thing.
Okay.
He is, after all, just a cab driver.
Okay, so I have some more questions then about this.
Sure.
Were we in an actual reality the whole time, or did at some point we slip into some sort of weird purgatory state? Because it very much felt like at some point, once we got to the gas station, like we were in this weird purgatory state, considering like everything perfectly aligned to us getting trapped, or we had the weird situation going on with our characters' interactions. And it kind of felt like this, like, not necessarily hell per se, but like maybe I want to say purgatory.
Yeah, it's yeah, so if you remember back to when we played Oakwood Heights, the kind of supernatural stuff in that setting is capable of making little pocket dimensions. The gas station is totally a pocket dimension, and it is run by the guy in the what you call it, the cash, the guy running the gas station, the guy in the booth that's got the kind of infinite blackness inside there. It's his spot. Yeah, it's his little zone.
It's the guy I talked to essentially, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, where I thought I was initially going to go is that like the gas station's much deeper than it actually appears type of thing. Like you can keep going down and down and down. So I was kind of like the idea I had in my head, and then y'all just kind of booked it out of there. I'm like, oh, I go, okay, cool. We're just doing that, and we're doing something else now. Guess the cab driver's more of a thing. And then you went off the road. I'm like, oh, this totally makes sense. Like they're out in the desert, like they're out of that, but like the desert's weird and whatnot. So yeah, you're back in kind of quote reality at that point, but also you were like way in the middle of goddamn nowhere. Sometimes reality is hell of its own making.
I completely forgot you could die being exposed to the elements, and that sun is an element.
Oh yeah, that was getting clapped by the sun was not something I was expecting, but here we are.
As someone who's quite pale and sweats, I live in constant fear of the sun doing that to me. So I'm like, yes, that was definitely one of my very real fears of like getting caught out in the exposure of like cold I can do, lots of intense direct sun. I'm like, I will melt physically like a candle, I'm pretty sure.
I've only been sunburned once, so I forget.
You don't know how much of a flex that is on me.
I completely forget that's a thing.
I've gotten a sunburn on a sunburn.
Yeah, I don't sunburn very often, but when it does, it's like really excruciating circumstances. I think I've only gotten sunburned actually like maybe like twice in my life.
I get sunburned at least twice a year,
Oh God,
if not more.
I'm sorry.
Now they're on a whole kind of crazy tangent on this one. Like how we're on sunburns, like seeing as you've lived experience with the nightmare that is the sun trying to kill you, you are aware that like when sunburns are bad, like your skin starts to blister, it starts to peel off, and it will like welt and explode and stuff like that. Like it goes like radiation burn on you eventually.
Oh, I've seen. I mean, it is a radiation burn. I've seen people with some really gnarly sunburns, and in my mind, I'm just like, damn, I am so happy that I've never experienced that in my life, because like it is a radiation burn, straight. Because just radiation just occurs naturally, and I think that's bullshit.
Yeah,
but whatever. I legit could not like. I'm just kind of thinking about that game, the weird choices that kind of led to both of us out being like in the desert trying to find shade and absolutely just failing to remember that the sun rotates, or not the sun rotates, but we rotate around the Earth. And therefore, the sun just kind of passes through the horizon.
I mean, it's Kult. The sun might rotate in Kult. We have no way of knowing.
True.
It could simultaneously be the dome and the flat Earth and the sphere simultaneously in Kult.
But I stand by my choice of in fight or flight to pick fight and maybe kill a shadow. Because homie was a dick.
He was a true asshole, yes. Anything else about Driver? We're going to move on to Horse Girl.
I don't think I have anything else in terms of Driver, so I think I'm good.
How did you come upon Horse Girl?
Okay, so we're going to talk about Horse Girl. Horse Girl is a game very near and dear to my heart for very bizarre reasons. Horse Girl is a solo journaling tabletop RPG. I played it with the dice variant because I own a Jenga tower, and
you're supposed to use a Jenga tower.
Oh yeah, so it's part of this whole kind of solo journaling tabletop RPG trend where because it's a GM-less game, you're basically playing against luck or a deck of cards and stuff like that. The idea is the Jenga tower symbolizes stability, and you're pulling pieces out. You're not putting them back on. You're just pulling and pulling and pulling until it falls over. The version I played was using dice to kind of count down. It elongates the game some, but I'm really fucking good at Jenga, so I could probably make that last for a lot longer than I should have been able to. It doesn't matter, but kind of it's the idea. It's a visualization of your stability going down as this tower is slowly getting picked away at, which I think is cool, but I don't own a Jenga tower I could use for this, so I went with the dice approach for this. It was one of the zine quests or something along those lines. I think like 2 or 3 years back as of recording this, so we're recording this in 2024. I want to say it was like 2022, 2023 at the like most recent. There was one of those like tabletop RPG zine things going on, and I spend a lot of time going through this because there's always a couple things that are absolutely weird, and they're often pretty cheap, like $5-6 to kickstart on Kickstarter, get a PDF version of it. And every once in a while, I find a gem that I look at it and go, I don't think I'm ever going to get to play this or have time. Or I'm never gonna make the time to play this, but like I want this game to exist. And Horse Girl was one of those games where it's like a game of body horror and the horror of being turned into a horse for love. And I'm like, that is such an oddly specific and weird description. I want this game to exist. Here's $10. And Kickstarter was successful ultimately, and it's been around in kind of my back pocket for a while. And this was finally a great chance to kind of crack it open and have some fun with it. And oh god, that game is weird. It's fun to find something that made me genuinely uncomfortable while playing it, or got kind of the nervous laughter out of me a couple times. It was no notes, perfectly executed, weird, fun experience. My issue with journaling tabletop RPGs is I'm never quite sure how repeatable they are to a certain extent. I did not win at Horse Girl. There is a way to successfully escape, although if I had done that, I would mostly horse at that point, but that's a whole other separate topic. It's a really fun game. If you're a person that's a tad jaded on horror topics, I can't recommend it enough. It's weird, it's fun, like it's definitely unique. The prompt cards for it are great. Like the body horror aspects of it are just top-notch writing. I really enjoyed that aspect of it. Like, this is going to sound strange. The creator did a really great job of capturing the physical horrors of what the plastic surgery steps to turning someone into a horse would be. And then also like the mental conditioning and other aspects you'd have to put that person through to break them down and turn them into a horse. I know it's a weird endorsement for a game to give, but like that's the best way of selling Horse Girl. It's just kind of like fun and weird and messed up, and like you get to have reaction cards where it's like, so my boyfriend's turned my head into an equine face by like breaking my skull and like remodeling it to now look like a horse. And that happened to me super early on, so I spent like in my mind the entire time playing like domestic abuse BoJack Horseman.
Is this not the plot of Tusk?
It's similar to Tusk. That was you're being turned into a walrus.
Yes, but is this like consensual? Because like Tusk is like, I'm being turned into a walrus non-consensually. With Horse Girl, are you like consenting to turn into a horse girl?
Yes and no. It starts off consensual, I guess, but like, so the escape mechanic for the game, like I'm not gonna go into the exact details of it so you can play the game and it's fun that way. Basically, you come to your senses and realize, yo, this is fucked up. I'm not going to go through with this. And depending on when that happens in your playthrough, that might happen when you're basically already a horse at that point. You physically look like a horse. You like walk like a horse. You like a horse potentially at that point. Like there's a nice little dose of science fiction. The setup basically is that you were a woman who's had a pretty shitty life, like a kind of at a rock bottom moment. You meet a guy and you kind of fall madly in love. And his one stipulation on like keeping this relationship going is that you have to turn into a horse for him. And I kind of played it as like, oh, ha ha, isn't that kind of a funny request? Oh shit, it's actually happening. But there's a bunch of ways you could play this that were like, no, I didn't make it as a human. I totally want to be a horse. Then you kind of, as the time goes on, oh shit, maybe I don't type of thing. Being a horse is miserable. There's a lot of interpretations, I think, to, yeah, fine, fucking turn me into a horse, and then realizing over the span of events, oh no, this is fucked up as hell. Like it, in theory, it is consensual from the start, but like part of the game is realizing that like there's a serious predatory aspect to it. Like, remove my jokes about it kind of thing. Like, it is literally the story of a person in power using said power to quite literally change you into a beast of burden. But yeah, I had a lot of fun with it. It was weird. It was a unique experience. Probably do some more solo stuff in the future because it's fun. I could do that by myself, and it's easy to kind of plug holes in the recording schedule. Most I'm really happy we got to have Negative Modifier play Horse Girl. We may be the first podcast to ever play Horse Girl. I don't know, but it's fun to have that out there, and hopefully people enjoyed the weirdness of it. And yeah, back to stuff we all played, though. I guess any questions about Horse Girl before I move on?
How long does Horse Girl typically take?
I think my raw recording of it, start to finish using the dice, I think my recording for it was like 2 hours, hour and a half, 2.5 hours maybe. I got through, I think, a lot more of the deck than you're supposed to. Like, I at one point had the thought where I'm like, oh shit, I'm gonna deck out of this. And there is, you can't deck out in that game, but like, I think I had like maybe 2 or 3 more tops pulls of cards before I was out of cards kind of thing. Like I got to the point where it's like, okay, either I'm going to escape or I'm going to pull the fourth king card and succumb to this whole bullshit. Like, it wasn't like, okay, what'll happen? It's like, no, there's literally not enough cards left for me not to either like go crazy and murder this dude and escape via the normal mechanics, or turn into a horse. Like, it was like, okay, all three of these are very real possibilities. So I have like 6 cards left or something. But I think I went through a lot more rounds than you normally would. I think also like the dice system elongates it. I'm not trying to made it that far if I was doing the Jenga tower, but I don't know. There are some rules about speeding up the game. Like, it's possible to start off the game, and this is kind of again going back to like how you interpret the whole consensual aspects of being turned into a horse. There's a version of that game where you start off with the I think it's the Ace of Hearts, which triggers the whole mechanic of like, okay, at the end of each event, roll a die. If you get a 6, you get one step closer to realizing, yo, this is kind of fucked up, and leaving.
Okay. Because I was just very intrigued as to like what the inciting incident is, I guess, other than just kind of like I'm turning myself into a horse for love, or I'm being turned into a horse for love.
It starts off as, I think it's very open to interpretation. Like all these things, it's the how you mentally approach it. I definitely approached it from the kind of perspective of, oh, ha ha, like people say crazy things. Oh shit, you meant that. And then I got one of the king cards that like dramatically changes you away from being just a person pretty aggressively. I think it was like maybe the first hand I pulled, I got you get your head turned into a horse head type of thing. And like, it's from the perspective of looking at like what that would physically mean on the human body. Like, hey, you have a horse head, it hangs off the front. Like, that's physical agony potentially at that point. It's very hard to kind of laugh that off or kind of like, oh, ha, isn't this weird? Like, no, you start off kind of pretty quickly a monster at that point. Like, every time you look in a mirror, you're realizing that like you literally have a horse head. Yeah, but I think it's also one of those ones with a couple other, like, you could go quite far in this game before the horsification truly kicked in. Like, there's a bunch of kind of like sort of horsification stuff that like minus the physical changes of the horse stuff aren't quite as, they're weird, but they're not like as aggressively weird. Like, I can't remember if like there's one card where basically like the dude starts feeding you pills that make it so you can start like digesting vegetables and like grass and stuff like that more effectively, so you can live off of that. And you're kind of he's transitioning you from eating human food to eating horse food. And like, if that was your first kind of like major change, that's just kind of a weird version of going vegan in my book, where it's like, oh yeah, okay, maybe it's like, yeah, it's weird I can eat grass now and live off of that, and that he like lets me outside to kind of roam around the house and eat grass now, but like,
I think I might have to give this a shot next time I'm there.
It's fun.
Next time I'm traveling.
It's weird. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, there are some truly upsetting cards. Like, of the 5 games we played for Halloween, this is the only tabletop RPG in a long time that's made me like actually uncomfortable and like oh no, this is very well written, and thinking about some of this stuff is genuinely off-putting. Like, it's like, I don't want to think about that at all. I cannot speak highly enough of Horse Girl. If you're looking for a first kind of solo journaling tabletop RPG, I'm sure there are more typical ones out there. This one's definitely the right type of weird for me, where it's like, hey, this is strange, and I'm super excited, super strange and weird, and had a lot of fun with it. And it's kind of fun just kind of like shrugging your shoulders and go, okay, yeah, embrace the weird. I am playing a woman that's basically been like tricked into this like super, from the outside, abusive relationship, but she's kind of super cool with it. And like, I think my playthrough ended with somehow me giving birth after succumbing to this whole thing to a half human, half horse creature, which, how the fuck does that even work? I'm not genetically a horse, or am I by the end? I don't know. But yeah, Horse Girl. Any more questions? Are we good to talk about some good old fashioned wholesome Delta Green?
Delta Green.
Get away from these horses. Yeah, so Erasure Confinement is a negative modifier original. It's I've had this idea kicking around for a while. It's actually inspired by a Reddit post in the Call of Cthulhu, I think, subreddit for that. And someone wanted to make a ring that made you invisible. And I'm like, okay, yeah, obviously it's a ritual type of thing. Maybe you spend some willpower to do it. And I'm like, but like, give it a hook where if you don't know how to turn it off, you get stuck invisible. And like play up the horror aspect of realizing you're going to be invisible forever because you have no idea how the fuck to turn this thing off. And like the fact that like that would be terrifying. And they had some time to marinate and eventually come up with the idea. It's like, what if it doesn't actually make you invisible? What if it just erases your presence and makes people actively ignore you? So like, that's even worse where like you can't even see yourself. Like you can see yourself, but like not well. And like you're keenly aware of the fact that like, it's not that you're invisible. It's that everyone is actively ignoring you. And that's kind of our setup for that. We got any general kind of questions for this, or we're going to just kind of walk through it and talk about it?
I love the plot hook for this, especially the concept of like, hey, there's more. We thought there was just the one. Because that's not like the only. I can't remember if I did research. I did research for that.
There's at least 11 other ones. Yep.
Yes. And I think that I had turned in that research. I remember what character it was that did research and then submitted something into the Delta Green archives and it was wrong.
Oh, that was Lover in the Ice.
That was Lover in the Ice. Okay.
I think so.
Okay. Yes. Anyway, but like, because I don't know, there's just like these little things about Delta Green that just kind of create and just build upon itself and its own little universe and stuff, which I always think is like super rad.
Well, I will say, in negative modifier canon, I know where 2 of those other rings are, at least.
Good God.
Yeah, I know at least where 2 of them are.
I think the crew for that was quite interesting. Just because, like, I'm just trying to. I actually hold up. I think I'm mixing my fucking games together.
It was Dylan, you were a nuclear physicist or something, right?
Yeah, I was playing the nuclear physicist for that.
Yeah, so we had nuclear physicist, the art kind of historian for the FBI for the theft division, and what were you playing, Alex?
God, I can't remember the
border tactical guy. Yeah,
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Just the most ragtag group.
I mean, like,
who left me alone.
I nudged you at those characters a little bit because there was a whole kind of. It was interesting how you solved it. Like you chose to drill down on some hints that I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't know it's like you could get there, but like it's interesting. So there's 2 ways to wind up at the same conclusion. You obviously kind of took the one where it's like, oh, okay, we're gonna try and track down this dude, and like his house is weird. Like you're always going to wind up at his house dealing with the fact that he's invisible. My assumption would be that you'd spend some time researching the dead guy, which was James Brody, who was the body that was found, and then you kind of wind up at his house, and like you meet his daughter, granddaughter. What did I say for this? I think daughter. And the dude has a whole like hunting kit for these invisible Nazis from his time in World War II that comes with glasses that let you see the invisible people that kind of undo the illusion for it, and also a spell to turn the rings off. But that's a whole other kind of separate topic unto itself. And yeah, you guys kind of piece together the whole details of like he got trapped in the box, died, had the ring on because he used the ring for hunting these other dudes, and passed away ultimately. And had just been sitting there until kind of environmental disturbances caused the ring to fall off and he resurfaced. Kind of nudging for your characters was the fact that like you could have talked to the people at the medical place. That was kind of going to be Dylan's angle of kind of further research where you could kind of drill into that and be like, yeah, no, this body's super weird, and like it's like all the essences of it were drained out. Like it's not just mummified, it's like drained mummified, and there's a bunch of medical oddities that go along with it. Then you could also have the art aspects of it where it's like, hey, here's this little history book on like some weird art history that you could dive into that like James was keeping up on since his time in World War II when he vanished at the age of 73 in 1992. Well, yeah, you got the kind of more chaotic ending of kind of trying to brute force off the ring, which I also kind of was prepared for, where it's like, okay, yeah, like if they get there with that thing, it's like, oh, the ring also like has a minor force field like quality to it where like part of it making sure you can't notice this dude is you can't even touch him. Like stuff kind of bounces off him to a certain extent. Like you all picked up that he was in a car crash before you showed up at the house, right?
No.
No.
Yeah. So the reason he was like having the weird internal injuries as you were leaving was like his car's all fucked up because at some point he drove to the office where he kind of was totally ignored there. And sometime between leaving there and coming back to his house, he was in a car accident, which is why his car was all banged up because, again, no one can notice him. So he is in the, so there's a ticking clock of him dying, and it's possible for him, as I wrote this, to die and basically remain invisible and then become the same thing later down the road type of thing, or depending on how much time you spend on it type of thing. It's like basically there's kind of 3 stages. There's one where he's mostly sane but freaked out and you can kind of chop his finger off. Basically, if you investigate one thing and then track him down, that's the one thing. The second one, he's got a bit crazy by then because he's been totally kind of shut off for the last couple of days from any human interactions and like has been trying his ass off. So he attacks you and you're trying to fight an invisible guy that the moment he hits you, you stop remembering he hit you. So it's like, why am I taking damage? Like, what the hell is going on in here? And then kind of you've gone through all 3 possible research avenues. He's dead and you can turn it off. Still, you'll find him dead there and kind of you get a whole sandblast of like the desperation of the house and stuff like that. So from a sand perspective, you got the easiest approach. From the brute forcing your way through the ring mechanic, you got the most complicated approach.
It's been my personal goal to participate in a ritual. The closest I have gotten was to use the pendulum, dowsing method. But
I thought that was clever.
I figured if it wasn't like, if it was one of those things where like I can have someone interact with a pendulum that I had, that would be great. But at the same time, like the usage of the occult is such a soft magic system that it's just like, cool. I wonder, I don't know if this is gonna be working or whatever the hell, but if I could use my personal item in a way that I find kind of neat, I'm gonna try to use that, especially because it's my totem.
You know, from the handler side of things, I liked that because it was kind of this loophole where I'm like, you're technically not noticing Walt. You're noticing the spoon, and Walt's influence on the spoon would not be covered under kind of the way the spell works. Yeah, the spell will delete emails and shit like that, but it can't stop like the thing from swinging type of thing. The way it can't stop, it can erase a car from view, but it can't stop the fact you hit a car type of thing, if that makes any sense. And I thought that was a clever workaround for a mechanic you guys didn't even know existed.
But knowing that there is a magic spell to turn the ring off, I want to know what a Delta Green ritual looks like.
This one's pretty minor. It's not quite as bad as some of the other ones out there. Like, it's just to turn off the spell. Probably a little bit of blood, a little bit of salt, maybe some other stuff. Any other questions about erasure confinement or nah?
No, not really.
Yeah. One of our more straightforward Delta Green operations, it seems.
Again, I love the belief that you think we could do a Delta Green one shot.
Yeah. Silly me. Well, that leads me into my other silly me. We can totally do this in a one-shot approach. Vaesen, the Dance of Dreams, one of the recommended kind of introductory to the setting of Vaesen scenarios, I guess. With some slight tweaks because we kind of bypassed the whole society-based aspects of that, which I think we've all kind of voted internally. We're going to wind up playing more Vaesen at some point. So we will do that part of it. We will not be ignoring that for kind of a longer campaign, but for the purposes of the Dance of Dreams, it did not make sense to go into that whole tangent of setting up the base to just use it for a little bit of ghost hunting. But yeah, I don't think anyone had heard of Vaesen prior to us playing it, right?
I think you've mentioned it and
Possibly.
It looked kind of interesting, or did it pop up on, I feel like it popped up on like Humble Bundle or some shit like that.
It would have probably popped up as part of that like weird Free League sale that like got Alchemy in trouble. Yeah, that was probably like front and center for that because the art for it's really good.
Like, I love a weird little, I guess, anachronistic. I mean, is it Victorian, Edwardian? I don't even think it was anachronistic. I just kind of love a little period piece.
It's 1800s Industrial Revolution Europe, I guess is the way of thinking of it, specifically Scandinavian / Western Europe, so its own kind of little mini beast unto itself. I think the game actually does a really good job of explaining it and kind of inside of its kind of contents. The whole idea we're very used to, at least us, because we're Americans, we talk about kind of the American Industrial Revolution, maybe some kind of the British Industrial Revolution. Through a lot of Europe, the Industrial Revolution rolled out in very strange, unique ways that were kind of very specific to like not just that country, but like that region inside of that country. And in kind of the Scandinavian ones, you wound up with this very aggressive kind of city versus not city folk situation going on where like you still needed the farms and stuff like that to provide food, so you couldn't have those go empty. But like there was a real cultural shift to be like modern and kind of do away with a bunch of old stuff and like go to the cities and do all that stuff. And it kind of caused a bunch of ripple effects where it's like, hey, we have no more farmers anymore. Shit. All these cool metal parts, but we can't eat that shit, apparently. And it's something I kind of very much enjoy from a setting perspective. Like, the game does a great job of kind of explaining it to the GM of like, hey, Vaesen are being forced to change with the times, and they don't necessarily like that because they don't work so well in kind of an industrial age type of world where there's less wonder and magic and weirdness to it. Like, it's this explanations to everything. Isn't that boring?
Oh, okay. That's the relationship between the spiritual world and the coming the revolution. Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is also during the time period where like Christianity is kicking into full gear in the Scandinavian countries. So like a bunch of stuff that was historically just kind of culture is now being branded as like witchcraft or heretical or kind of other stuff along those lines. And we didn't get into it much because just kind of how the game played out. But like you can very much get into the fact that like a lot of people think Vaesens are demons because fuck it, they sure as hell look like demons type of thing. Like, our boy Oscar, by all measures, would pass as a demon if you did not know what Vaesen were versus not, kind of thing. And also, your contact may have had some secrets that may have played into that in a more traditional version of Dance of Dreams. There's a whole kind of competing secret society that has their own thing going on that he may or may not be part of. We want to talk about Alex's cursed dice for that game?
Oh my god, dude. Your dice were so bad for, this game and another one.
I think it was this one.
I thought your dice were also bad for the last game we played.
S.C.R.E.A.M, yeah.
It wasn't that
They
bad.
weren't as bad, yeah.
It
That's
was
fair.
fucking cursed in the one before it. What was it called again? Vaesen, yeah.
Well, Dylan, didn't you figure out that like you went back and listened to it and like Alex only got one success the entire time or
Yes,
something like that?
Something like that.
Yeah.
It was like maybe 2. And that was it. Like it was literally like less than 5 for sure.
It
like,
was bad.
I think it was after I failed once, I never succeeded again. Literally. Like that was just a constant rolls and fails. And then the negative effects just made the rolls even worse. And it was just literally like a snowball effect of just getting absolutely fucking destroyed by the dice.
So that's actually probably a little bit on me, but also that's how it's supposed to play out. So every time you pick up a condition, it subtracts 1 from your dice pool.
Yeah.
No, so I was gonna say, so once you get a couple conditions, you are down some dice.
Yeah. And the crazy part is I was failing at my best stats. That's the problem. The dice that the rolls I was making were supposed to be like my best stats for my character. And I was getting completely obliterated by my dice. It was just awful. So by the time like I was already rolling stats that weren't that great, I already had bad conditions. And it was just literally like, oh yeah, I got like 2 dice to roll and it failed. What a shocker. And like literally just kept happening. And so I got to a certain point where I think I had like 3 out of the 4 like check boxes on just being completely messed up. And it was like, yeah, let's keep going. Like literally, I think I was literally inches away from death the whole time.
Critical injuries kicking in, but yeah.
It was just, it was bad. And that was all because I had to go and like, yeah, I should have known, hey, do you want to watch the puppet show by yourself in this weird enclosed room? Yeah, sure, that'll play out well.
What's the worst that could happen?
Oh yeah.
Just really wanted to show you her play, Alex.
Yeah.
Some might say that play was to die for.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you the spirit that showed up was definitely the spirit of Father Faustus coming back to haunt me.
I'm so glad that is like my marker.
It is such good like podcast lore that like I feel so bad because I loved your character and just getting the shittiest roles. Like cinematically, it was really good, but on a character basis, I felt so bad every time you got a bad roll.
I mean, like between that and Erasure Confined, where you all were sitting there being like, "Fuck, he's doing willpower shenanigans again, motherfucker."
Oh yeah, yeah, there was that.
But I was a research assistant, or I was primarily a researcher. I had bonds that I could just start fucking with.
Just attack us like normal, you monster.
I think I got down like pretty low in my willpower, if I remember correctly. Like really low, but not enough to like die. I don't remember 100%. It's been a little bit.
It would have been hard to kill you in that one.
It really does feel like it's been longer than it has. Like it's only been a few weeks, but it just feels like it's been so long ago. Oh, but yeah, that was probably the worst rolls I've ever had in a long time.
I think that was one of the first times I had to like calculate myself. It's like, is this metagaming to know that like I could probably stab myself one more time before I have to call it quits?
Yeah. I think Chad has the dubious honor of there was a Year Zero engine game we were playing. I think it was Coriolis, where the group we were playing with just could not roll for shit. And they started accusing me of like rigging the dice or something. I started rolling and I'm like, no, see, you can get like 5 6s in a row off these things. Y'all are just terrible at this. The Year Zero engine definitely giveth and taketh away when it chooses to.
How does our personal items come into play?
You can use them to kind of recover, as Dylan did a one condition.
Yeah,
Okay.
remember? You can do it. I think it's once per session, but you can do it.
Yeah, given how we play, I typically change that to kind of once per adventure, so it doesn't become a min-max of, okay, the session's almost over, use it now, next session, use it again right at the start.
I still don't know what a promissory note is, to be quite honest. I don't know what a promissory is. I tried looking it up and I didn't understand what that was.
Money is basically a promissory note, right?
I didn't know if it was a bill or if it was like my receipt.
Yeah, it's basically a legally binding thing that says I promise to pay you X based on criteria.
Yeah, it's the official IOU.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like some cash on delivery or something.
I thought I just was walking around with my debt literally in my hands just for everyone to just look at and be like, damn, homie, you're broke.
It could be that, or it could be, someone owed you money.
Yeah, from that angle, actually, too, it could be like, okay, yeah, like maybe I'm not rich, but like I'm owed riches or something. And kind of taking out loans against that or something. Yeah. This money says I'll someday have this type of money. See? I was generally surprised you, Dylan, did not know about Vaesen before we started playing it. I figured this was a game that would wind up on your radar just based on our similar tastes of these things.
Oh, yeah, dude. The thing that sold me on Vaesen was the character creation, if I'm being completely honest.
Yeah.
Because, I looked at it and I was like, that's kind of quaint. And then I think every single character we rolled up kind of made sense. And it was very quick and it was very cool.
The part I always find weird about that is they bury that in the back of the book. And I'm like, they really need to put like a couple references to this earlier on because it's such a good character roll-up system. Like I've played some bad ones. I've played some ones where I'm like, okay, this is fine. Like that one was kind of neat where it's like the dice do a good job of spelling out, okay, yeah, this is kind of the character. Like make of them what you will. But like it's one of the better ones I've come across, I think. Like it's up there with Traveler in my mind.
And it makes sense that it's super simple because you can do one term, right? And you get a skill and you've got your attributes really high. And if you want more equipment and more skills, you go another term, but you lose an attribute. And that's like really easy, and you can only do a maximum of 3, so character creation isn't going to take that long.
Yeah.
And I mean, we didn't even dive into a whole other aspect of Vaesen, like the castle and everything.
Yeah. Your base.
But man, I love that game so much. That was so fun. I'm not the biggest fan of E6 die pools where you need a 6 to succeed. I'm not really a fan of the dice system, but I always love the games that they are built off of.
I'm a sucker for dice pools because more dice equals more fun. But yeah, I get the math behind them is always kind of annoying, and I know that.
Yeah.
One
of my chief complaints with specifically that's Year Zero, right?
Yeah.
The one that we were using. Almost all the time you're gonna have a 50-50 chance to succeed, which doesn't feel super cool with your highest die pool. But I understand, the math and everything, but that's my chief complaint with it, to be honest. But I love Vaesen. What's another one? I don't know if Forbidden Lands uses the Year Zero engine, but it uses something similar. Yeah, I like Forbidden Lands. I like the setting a lot. Twilight 2K, pretty big fan of. But I just don't like the dice system.
there's a chart that does a breakdown of the math behind it, and like you look at it and you go, okay, cool. I don't believe these numbers. Like, I'm like, mathematically, yeah, I get this is what that means. In practice, no.
Yeah, hence Alex pushing his best pool, which gives him like an 80% chance to succeed and getting nothing.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I mean, it does make for those really like incredible moments that I'm going to remember forever. Basically, you know, anytime you rolled Alex, we were all like sitting on the edge of our seats, like, yeah, are you going to make it this time?
No.
And we also got like defeatist Alex of being like, I'm just going to roll and get my 0 now. Told you. Would you look at that? Not a single success. Yeah, no, the expansion got announced, or expansion, new source book for it, I guess, got announced between we played that and we're recording this. And I think I've had some minor gripes with Vaesen over the years. Like, it's one of those ones where initially I was kind of, I think we said this in the session 0 stuff, but it's not part of the normal feed. Yeah, it was kind of the like, I didn't quite get who that game was for. Then I played it some, and I'm like, okay, cool. I get who this game is for. Like, it's kind of like, because Free League's also allegedly developing a Call of Cthulhu game, and I find myself wondering, just make the fucking Call of Cthulhu a source book for Vaesen at this point. Just do that instead. And the upcoming kind of expansion for it's called like Dark Carpathia or something like that, or Magic Carpathia. And it's all of like we've done the Scandinavian and kind of like the British UK Isles or the Emerald Isles, like the Ireland stuff. We're getting into the kind of unhinged, absolutely nightmare fuel folklore of Russia and the other kind of Slavic countries off to the right-hand side or western side of Europe, where it's like, oh yeah, this is where vampire lore comes from. And conflicting vampire lore at that. Mythic Carpathia, my bad, not Darker Magic Carpathia. My bad. How could I have messed that up? But yeah. Anything else for Vaesen? Are we good to move on to our final game of the season?
I just want to say one more time that Vaesen is super fun. If anyone listening ever gets the chance to play it, you know, jump at the opportunity. It's super good. Also, I felt incredibly sad at the end with Oscar, sorry. Lots of O names following us like a dog or like a lost dog as we're going to bury his body. That was like sad.
It's a tragic story, I think. And like, I like Dance of the Dream a lot. It's not perfect. It has some kind of, it's weird. I think there's an argument to it's a really bad introductory story, which I don't disagree with unless you modify it the way I did, because it really wants to be played as like, hey, it's the first mission you go on after you get the castle or something to kind of introduce you to the larger setting. Like, it introduces you to kind of some interesting story hooks for kind of the meta plot of the game. I think it's kind of hard to undersell, though, just how like well the ending sells the like, yeah, Oscar was doing some bad stuff, but like, it's not totally his fault. Like, yes, he was a monster, but like, he was made a monster. His death was pretty messed up in the grand scheme of things. There's some sympathy for the devil in that ending, definitely, as there kind of exists for all the Vaesen in the game, where it's like, yeah, they're not evil necessarily. They just have beef with humans they have to deal with occasionally. But last but not least, that leads us to S.C.R.E.A.M, the Terror, aka the Storyland Tragedy. This was a weird one. I spent, of the various games we played, I had to spend the most time researching this one to find it. You'd be surprised how few 80s slasher simulators there are inside the tabletop RPG space. And this one kept coming up, and then I kind of finally like tracked it down and read through the rules. And I'm like, okay, it's simple. We can probably work this character sheet for it. And the more I kind of messed with it, the more I'm like, okay, I like what this game is doing. And I have no regrets about the story we ran for it. If we had waited literally 2 days to record that, it would have been totally different, because I got way into fucking Terrifier, the Terrifier movies, like the day after we recorded that. And oh God, would that have been different if I'd had that in the back of my brain while running that. Like, I'd forgotten my love for good old fashioned slasher monsters, and Terrifiers, like, they're allowed to enjoy what they do. And I'm like, you're right. Jason does like what Jason does.
I felt like I was putting too much thought into my actions, and I should have just breasted boobily across the theme park, just getting myself into just trouble.
I mean, it's easy to kind of armchair quarterback it like that, Kitten, but
Oh god.
that's my last one, I promise.
I was trying to call back to 80s comic darling Catherine Shadowcat Pride of X-Men because I can't help myself when it comes to just teenagers being put into dire situations. And of all things, Shadowcat was absolutely a teenager put into a dire situation. Unfortunately, I accidentally stumbled into fucking degeneracy.
No, I think it was just nicknaming yourself Kitten that I'm like, okay, if we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this all the fucking way. If you're gonna give me a nickname, I'm gonna use that nickname.
I'm not here to yuck anybody's yum, not to kink shame or anything else like that. But I just put myself in a situation where it was just a little, not harrowing, but just unfortunate.
The best part about it, I think, though, is that you didn't know the context until we actually brought it up. I think, like, wasn't that captured in?
Oh yeah, that's
no.
the Session Zero stuff. Like, for the record,
Yeah.
that wasn't the joke I was making. The fact he's nicknamed himself Kitten, I'm like, no, that's funny. Like, having someone in a horror movie be like, have someone constantly call them Kitten. That's a fun 80s horror movie dumb stuff where it's like, here's Chet, here's Jad, here's Samantha, and here's Kitten. And you're like, I know everything about these characters.
I love 80s horror films.
Yeah,
like
no,
there's a cheerleader with a cigarette hanging out of her mouth named Kitten. Like you already know what she's about.
I thought it was great. Yeah, I wasn't making jokes about the Discord Kitten thing for the record. I was just making jokes about the fact it's like, no, you gave yourself a horrible nickname. Well played. I'ma use it still.
I was just in the moment. I didn't realize the repercussions that it would flood back into player space.
Just every time Charlie was being serious, like, hey, what are you gonna do, Kitten? It's just like, oh god.
As a clip we put out, I think, prior to this going up, sometimes you lose character creator chicken. Apologies if I was making fun of the Discord Kitten thing. I thought it was a fun nickname. I'm like, no, give someone a nickname. I'm gonna use that nickname because it amuses the hell out of me.
It was very funny, even though I hate it.
That's how you know it's good when Dylan hates it.
I'll say I can't remember who suggested it, but I want to thank whoever suggested that I play like a stupid jock because that was really fun.
Oh, speaking of that, it's been bugging me since we recorded it. What was the sport you used to play, if you don't mind sharing that?
I used to mainly run track and field,
Ah,
but I did play football for a year, and I was the safety and running back.
ah.
They wanted to make me a wide receiver, but I can't catch because I don't have depth perception.
Mm.
But yeah, I mean, you could ask me anything about football today, and I'd tell you I have no idea because I didn't really learn anything playing that.
Just shoved right out of your brain for tabletop RPG bullshit.
Yeah, to be fair, I was like just about getting into high school when I was playing, and I realized like partially I didn't like football culture, at least in my high school area, was really gross, and I didn't really like the people I was playing with. So,
And this is how we got Chet. He's number one.
yeah, he is the he is the varsity coach, football captain.
I didn't catch you saying that till I was editing it and I was dying. I'm like, God damn it, Dylan.
I'm surprised you didn't catch that because I'm like, oh, Charlie's gonna say something for sure. And it just flew under the radar and it was like, oh, great.
I'm so glad you left it in.
Nothing wrong with it. Like, it felt like a very Chet thing to say.
No, there were a lot of really funny moments looking back that, like, when I was playing Chet, like him tapping his skull when he was being called thick skull or thick-headed. I had a lot of fun being an idiot with that one.
Of the 5 games, S.C.R.E.A.M was definitely my favorite to go back and edit because there's just stuff that when I was running it, I just missed or like didn't have a chance to react to appropriately. So, okay, cool. Like that happened. We have to move on to this next thing. I have to kind of keep the game flowing. And there were just some fun interactions where I remember them happening. And I'm like, yes, that was a lot of fun to listen to. This was a lot funnier than I remember it being, though, with some frequency.
Yeah, that wasn't a horror game we were playing. That was a comedy.
Yeah, I mean, like, it was very much in line with 80s horror, which is like,
You're right.
Yeah, it's like, as the game encourages you to be, it's be stupid, do the dumb shit that pissed people off when you watch those movies. because it's funny.
I took that to heart. I absolutely took that to heart.
Oh, you absolutely did.
Being co-collaborator to the horrors and everything else like that, it's a really great mechanic. It is absolutely Dead by Daylight, but like not really.
I'm not gonna lie, I should have played more Dead by Daylight. Again, like if I had just gotten into the Terrifier movies before this, oh, the difference it would have made. Like you'd have had Mr. Modifier chasing you around that theme park.
Mr. Modifier? Holy shit.
It's the body modifier. Get out of here.
I don't have a whole lot to say about S.C.R.E.A.M. I mean, it's a very simple system.
Yeah, it's 2 pages. It's like what, maybe 100 words of rules combined type of thing.
I'm always a fan of those as like a 1 or a 2 off thing. And I like the unique mechanic where, you know, if you die, you become the monster as well.
Yeah, I actually want to talk about that some because from like a game master perspective, running games that are complicated because like someone's going to die first and you don't want them to be the one stuck kind of waiting for everyone else to go down. It's the fact that it's like, no, with every death, the horror gets more powerful because those players now become extensions of the horror. I really like that. Where it's like, no, they're not out of the game. They are still a functioning part of it. They're still maybe not as like, they're not as they were, but they still get to be an active participant in the story going forward. And I think that's a really nice addition to that type of game.
Yeah, I want to compliment you, Chad. I don't know if this has always been the case, but I've noticed, especially recently, when in S.C.R.E.A.M, especially when you're describing like the things you were doing, and especially when you're describing the things that were the like horror was doing, those descriptions were very good. Listening back to them too, when I listened to S.C.R.E.A.M again, like I remember them being good and they held up in recording.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I've been reading a lot.
No, it's interesting because you and I have very different styles of how to describe stuff, and like having those two play off each other is kind of interesting.
Whenever I visualize something, it's again, I didn't realize that I dropped my previous fucking martial arts lore or whatever have you, but I'm very physical as I'm describing stuff. I have to almost like mimic things and whatnot. Like it's something that like I want people to feel, I guess, almost like tactile. Yeah, I want like a tactile element in the way that I can convey imagery. I feel like sometimes that I just don't have a solid grasp of speaking on the fly, so I try to feel it myself and describe what I'm feeling when I think about stuff. I don't know. But I'm glad that you were able to have fun with my descriptions. Sometimes I feel like I go overboard with it.
Nah.
Yeah, when I DM, I like to get very descriptive with things, so I don't really find a fault in it. I think they were very good. And I mean, as always, Charlie's, yours were as well.
That's different. I definitely pull from the school of I'll give you a general description, and as like you show interest in things, I'll flesh them out because it's a way of highlighting the important parts of it. Like it's one thing to kind of info dump all that stuff on. It's very different styles at that point. It was kind of fun having Jad do like the super, like it gave the two different entities different personalities, I guess, in my mind. I kind of appreciated that where like I still got to play my weird kind of amorphous, like whatever you want to call it, kind of like shadow creature thing. And then we had Risen Kitty that's like this not blob, but kind of like really playing up the kind of like flowy aspects of how we described the character originally type of thing. And yeah, it's like it was the idea. So I'm like, yeah, we have this idea going, but I didn't kind of figure out what that character would be. And Jad kind of made it his own. That was kind of fun to see the two differences. Like it felt like one of those things where it's like, okay, we now have the horror movie crossover where it's like, oh, these two movies are very different normally, but like somehow the Xenomorph and Jason both work in the same movie somehow. I was pleasantly surprised by S.C.R.E.A.M. I was expecting that thing to go kind of just off the rails into Chaosville or work out well, and it did both somehow.
Yeah, I think for like a 2-page game, it was definitely delightful.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Well, any other questions about the games or thoughts everyone wants to get off their chest before we close this out or nah?
No, I don't have any questions.
Yeah.
No, I think we covered it pretty well. I'm looking forward to getting back into like campaign content.
Our normal stuff, our long form stuff.
Dude, I love our long form stuff. It's how you get like Father Faustus and John Smith was his name. Was your first character's name, right, Alex?
I
Oh,
don't remember.
the CIA guy. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. He was the CIA guy with the generic name, so I can't remember it properly.
That wasn't even his real name.
I know.
Yeah, oh yeah. I had you guys call me John, but yes, his name wasn't actually that. It was what was it? Like
It's fucking Javier Bardem.
yeah.
That was the picture. Yeah.
Javier Cortez or something like that. But yeah. That was like a fun little meta moment, I think, though. Well, I don't know if it's even meta, but like, yeah, it was like, even from the fellow players, I was like disguised. And
I mean,
really
like
fun.
Delta Green character that thinks Delta Green code names are stupid the way we play them is a fun little meta thing at that point.
Yeah.
I'm not doing code names because they're stupid. We're doing code names.
Yeah, I think that reveal was definitely in my top moments. Or
Yeah, I was late.
Yeah, because it was a couple of like chapters in. I think it was into the third chapter until I think it was the first time we ran into what was it, Nyarlathotep? Did I say that right?
Sure, close enough.
Yeah, I think that was the first time when we ran into him that my name actually came out, and you guys were like, "Wait, what the fuck? John's not actually your name?"
It was very good.
I mean, it only showed up once. That was in Weirdwood, but I guess spoilers for past content that wasn't part of the Halloween stuff too. But that was also like over a year ago. So
Yeah,
You
sorry.
had
The
your
rule is
opportunity.
if it's been a year, sorry, it's kind of on you.
I mean, yeah, we've done Delta Green stuff that references it since then too. So
True.
yeah,
I'm still excited to kind of stick around with SL, just because like having the weird little like rotational whatever have you is like super fun. I do miss having long form characters because you get just to develop and just be weird with that sort of thing. But I know that we're kind of just saving up for just the next buckle up. Let's hunker down.
yeah. No, it's interesting. I think it's one of those ones where like I think all these games do pretty well as one shots. I think kind of obviously Horse Girl and S.C.R.E.A.M kind of have to be one shots given their very nature. It's interesting how different these games feel from kind of their longer campaign style play versus kind of their shorter one shot type of stuff. Like obviously Cult's kind of meant to be a more winding story. Like I think it works well with the Cult's weird where kind of it works at any scale because it's kind of the same thing because of just how Powered by the Apocalypse works.
Mhm.
I personally like longer form Delta Green, and I think Vaesen definitely benefits from kind of more space to have stuff breathe and let unfold slowly. Like there's a version of the Dance of Dreams, I think, where that kind of like you play out over the span of like 2 or 3 days in game, where like the ghost sightings maybe ramp up over time or something. I don't know. Like there's a version of that one that's a more campaign chaptery type of story, I think, that kind of takes 2 or 3 sessions potentially, or 3 or 4 sessions, because we got done in 2 technically. That I'm not quite sure how that one plays, but I think it maybe works not better, but definitely differently. I think it kind of lets you drill down into kind of more of the history of what's going on there and explore the area around it, I guess, because as presented, you find Nora's notes and then it's like, okay, fuck, we can solve this thing right now, I guess. Like maybe there's more of a scavenger hunt you could do of tracking down her notes or something like that. That would be interesting to play up. I don't know, though. Yeah, it'll be good to get back to some long form campaigns. Anyone else got anything profound to say? Or are we good to close this out?
I think we're good.
Yeah, I think we're good.
I think we're solid.
Hopefully everyone's still listening to this, enjoyed spooky season, and yeah, more of our regular long form story stuff is coming up soon. Once it's done being recorded and edited, obviously. But yeah, thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you learned about maybe some new games or something like that. Go play Horse Girl. It's weird and fun. Go play any of these games. I generally like to think that we don't play a game on here we wouldn't recommend, like, hey, it's fun to play at least once or twice type of thing. But yeah.
I think it would be so funny for us just to play a bad game.
I mean, like, that's not hard. I know of some bad games. Also, like, what is a bad game? Because
that's a good quantifier.
Yeah.
I will run us some D&D right now.
See, I can talk shit about D&D, but I don't think it's a bad game.
You're
It's
right.
a game as everyone else makes it out to be. Like, if we want like bad games, we're talking like,
oh, give me like 3 weeks. I could pull up a fucking real quick heist for Shadowrun Anarchy.
Again, I don't think that's a bad game, just misguided and wrong about everything that makes Shadowrun. But I'm trying to think of like a bad game off the top of my head. Like, I keep going, My brain keeps jokingly saying Mage the Ascension, but I'm like, no, that's because you don't like Mage because it's a pain in the ass to run. What's the point of this game? To bend reality. God damn it. On that note, yeah, thank you for listening.
Ciao.
Au revoir.
On behalf of all of us at Negative Modifier, thank you for listening, and we do hope you enjoyed this episode. If you are not already a subscriber, please consider becoming one, partially so you do not miss our next episode, but mostly because it helps new listeners find us. In addition to that, if you like the episode, please consider clicking the thumbs up button below. If you'd like to further support the show, please consider joining us on Discord or becoming a Patreon patron.